I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, and this is part 8. Makes sense because part 1 was 1 through 3 of my ranking and reviewing of Bob Dylan's bootleg series. That we're now on volume 10, another self-portrait. This is comes out in two versions, a 2 CD set, which is just a whole bunch of outtakes and alternate versions and unreleased takes and a couple live tracks of material from the self-portrait sessions and the New Morning sessions, which apparently overlapped at some point, or the material overlapped, or it's well detailed in here. But it's essentially this is the self-portrait focus with a little bit of New Morning focused release. The 2 disc set is just like these unreleased tracks. There is also a 4 disc set, which comes in what I think is the first in the series of sort of the bookcase, the giant sort of bookcase things, which comes with 2 awesome books. I think, yeah, one's upside down, one isn't. Yeah, that's awesome. 2 awesome books, one of which contains the actual 4 CDs, and then essays about it, breakdowns of the songs, and then one that just pretty much documents a whole bunch of pictures from the era. Awesome release. I just absolutely love the bookshelf, love the size of this. The CDs themselves are come in like little not in slip cases that you can remove, but are like inserted in. So you kind of need, if you're going to take them in your car or on the road, you need another sort of slip case to put them in. If there's a complaint, that's it, but that's incredibly minor. And this is a pretty fun release. I think very highly, not very highly, but when I did the ranking of Bob Dylan's albums, I put Self-Portrait pretty high. I think I had it as a pretty high B. I think this Self-Portrait is the original Self-Portrait is one of those albums that was panned and bashed and pretty much despised when it first came out. Like, what the heck is Dylan doing? We got strings, we got these weird covers, we're kind of all over the map, right? But over time, I think people have looked at it like a little more like, yeah, this is actually makes sense as a release, and I think they've given him more credit. I have a separate video on Self-Portrait when I do Bob Dylan's, I think, B-ranked, B-tier albums. I talk about it a little more. So I'm not going to go into the album, but I got distracted. 2 CDs are the original. The bonus, which comes in this box, has a 3rd CD, which is the Isle of Wight concert from 1969 with the band, of which there were a couple tracks on Self-Portrait, the original Self-Portrait. And then the 4th CD is Self-Portrait, a remastered version of the original album. If you don't have the original album, this is a pretty good buy, because I think the original album is pretty good, and the 2 CDs with all the sort of odds and ends and unreleased stuff is pretty fantastic. And what this reminds me of, about 15 years ago now, maybe a little more recent, back when XM and Sirius were first getting serious. Bob Dylan had a series, I think it was just on XM, called Bob Dylan's Theme Time Radio Hour. And essentially it was an hour of him curating songs around a theme. So like the theme would be like cars, right? And it was a collection of songs, a lot of like really like almost like Lomax style folklore deep cuts that, Dylan had unearthed at some point in his life, with a couple, maybe 1 or 2 more recent songs, maybe a couple songs that you knew because they were hits, but mostly stuff that was like, deep dive, really kind of classic, hidden, that kind of deep cuts type stuff. A lot of folk music, a lot of religious music. But it was a fascinating hour of music. And essentially Dylan would be like, he'd introduce a song and then he'd play a song. And it would just be like, in Dylan's voice, which I can't impersonate, but he'd be like, hey man, Big Bill Boozy liked to drive down the road with the top down and the radio cranked up. He took those corners pretty fast, so hop in the back seat and make sure you put your seatbelt on as we go down the road with Big Bill Boozy or something, and then he'd play the song. But he had all these really neat little introductions to all these really sort of neat songs that you would probably never heard of in your life. And so I feel like that's what Self-Portrait, the original album, was him doing covers, doing some classic folk songs, writing some songs that felt almost like classic folk songs, throwing in some live tracks, throwing in some rare covers. And the first two CDs of this, the sort of core of what this release is, just feels like that, but even more so. It's an eclectic, all over the road, all over the map, all over the style type collection. And like his singing voice, there's some country in there, there's some folk in there, there's some rock in there, there's Dylan doing all kinds of different stuff with his voice. So he's all over the map. And it really feels like the only thing missing from this is like a short little introduction of each song from Bob as to why this was a song he chose to like cover or release or put on this album. So it's just a really, really fun, really, really fascinating listen. There are, on the two CDs, which are the bulk of like the main release, there are 35 different songs. Some are alternate versions of stuff on the original Self-Portrait. Some are things that are like Self-Portrait songs, but without all the overdubs or all the stuff that was put on Self-Portrait, or in maybe a couple cases, something that was on Self-Portrait or something that was on New Morning, but in a different mix or with added overdubs. And there's some absolute must-hear classics on this stuff, mixed with stuff that maybe isn't a must-hear, but in the context of the album and context of the journey that the first two CDs present, it just sort of makes sense. Some of the really, really strong stuff, it opens up with Went to See the Gypsy, and a demo version of Went to See the Gypsy that is just the ultimate. It is such a great performance of the song, kind of an intimate performance. It kicks off the set beautifully, just almost like a must hear. Whole bunch of other songs, both stuff that was on Self-Portrait, not on Self-Portrait. You get a version of Little Sadie that's kind of stripped down. Get a song called Pretty Sorrow. Alberta number 3, an alternate version of that song. Spanish is the Loving Tongue. Annie's Going to Sing Her Song, cover of a really, really cool song. Another version of Time Passes Slowly. Version of Only a Hobo, Minstrel Boy, pretty neat song that he did with the band that we also, from the Basement tapes. We also get a live version of that on CD3 on that Isle of Wight show. A really nice version of I Threw It All Away from Nashville Skyline. Song called Railroad Bill, which is pretty cool. Thirsty Boots, another really cool song. This Evening So Soon. These Hands. Another sort of version of Little Sadie called In Search of Little Sadie. Song called House Carpenter. And then we close out with a version of All the Tired Horses, the lead-off track from Self-Portrait, but without the overdubs. And that's CD 1. And it really is this interesting journey where he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 traditional songs, 1, 2, 3, 4 cover songs, plus a handful of like Bob Dylan originals mixed in there, some of which you've heard in alternate versions, some of which you've never heard prior to the release of this set. And it's a really strong CD, but CD 2 has some even like more magical stuff on it. Opens up with a version of If Not For You that is just piano and like violin or fiddle, whatever. I think they're calling it a fiddle, the violin. You get a version of Wallflower. You get a version of Wigwam from Self-Portrait without the overdubs. You get another version of Days of 49, one of the highlights of Self-Portrait. This is the version without overdubs. A song called Working on a Guru. An alternate version of Country Pie, which brings a little fun in the middle of the second disc. A live version of I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. A live version of Highway 61 Revisited, which sounds absolutely fantastic. A version of Copper Kettle, which somehow packs a little more impact than this Self-Portrait version. Song called Bring Me a Little Water. Sign on the Window. Really fun song, Tattle O'Day. Really, really fun traditional song. If Dogs Run Free. What for me is the highlight of the set, a version of New Morning with horns. It sounds like the theme song to like a morning show here in the States. You know, wake up, get your coffee. It's a new morning. Got some horns going in the back. This version of New Morning bops hard. It is fantastic. Another version of Went to See the Gypsy that doesn't quite pack the same punch as the ultimate opening version. a song called Belle Isle, self-portrait song without the overdubs, another version of Time Passes Slowly, and then we close out with the demo version of When I Paint My Masterpiece, which has some additional lyrics in the bridge. I think it's the bridge, has some additional lyrics. Not quite as polished as that version that would be released on, Greatest Hits 2, right, is when we saw that. Volume 2, right? But a really, a good version of it. An interesting version to hear those alternate lyrics. So two just really fun, eclectic, all over the map discs. The second disc has 4 traditional songs, 1 cover, a lot more Dylan originals, a couple live tracks. It definitely is more reflective of sort of the New Morning, Nashville skyline, country, that kind of early 70s country, and also kind of light poppy phase that Dylan was going through. Less of an eclectic self-portrait mix as disc 1, but it's still a really enjoyable listen. I'm going to turn on the air for a second and stop sweating, and then I'm going to jump back into this. And then the third disc of this is the complete live at the Isle of Wight Festival from August 31st, 1969. The band is the band. Great set list, little like couple sort of like self-portrait vibey type songs in there, very representative of like 1969. We get a She Belongs to Me opening, just fantastic. And I Threw It All Away, a Maggie's Farm, again with a really nice arrangement. This is one of those songs, Maggie's Farm, if you see it on a live set, it's probably going to be in some new, slightly funky, slightly different arrangement that just adds new life to it. This one does that. Wild Mountain Time, a cover of that traditional song. It Ain't Me, Babe, which one of those almost deconstructed melody songs where you're like, what is, oh, it's Ain't Me, Babe. That's what he's singing. You know, kind of one of those kind of like, slow it down and take it apart, maybe rob it a little bit of the melody until we get to the chorus and we kind of jump back in a little better. Really nice to Ramona that the crowd reacts really strongly to, which is pretty cool. Mr. Tambourine Man, another strong reaction from the crowd. I Dreamed I Saw St. Augustine. A Lay Lady Lay, again with a slightly different sort of just take on that song. Highway 61 Revisited, the same version that you can hear on the on disc 2 of this release. I think it's the exact same performance as disc 2 on this release, which is a good release because if you only got the 2 disc set, you got this, and it's a nice arrangement of this song. It has Robbie Roberts' guitar is really nice. I think it has better energy than the chaotic woo whistly version on the album. I like this live version better. So it's neat to hear it in the context of the concert. I think it was a good inclusion on just the limited 2 disc set. One Too Many Mornings, I Pity the Poor Immigrant, Like a Rolling Stone, I'll Be Your Baby Tonight. We get a Quinn the Eskimo. Always love to hear that song live. Minstrel Boy, a live version of that, which was on Self-Portrait, the earlier discs. And then we close out with a Rainy Day Women 12 and 35. So a really good, solid performance from Dylan and the band. Not the most high energy, ferocious performance. Some of the songs sort of dictate, I think, maybe a mellower take on the overall vibe, but a really good show. And I think one of the strengths or one of the ways that the Dylan system gets people like me to buy these bonus sets is because if you throw in a live concert that I can get, I'm going to go for the extra, like instead of the 2, I got to go for the 4, even though I already own Self-Portrait, and that's what the 4th disc is. This live release is just fantastic. And then disc 4 is just a remastered version of Self-Portrait. So I like this release a lot. I think it's one of the most fun, enjoyable. I don't want to say it's breezy and lighthearted because there's some pretty intense performances on here, some pretty good sort of vocal performances, some pretty good song choices. There's some emotional, impactful wallop to some of these songs. I don't know if any of that made sense. So it's not just like, woo, yay, carefree stuff, but the eclecticism, its eclecticness, its eclectosity makes this a really enjoyable listen. So anyways, where would I rank this among the other ones? I'm dropping it all the way at number 5. I would say number 6, the Live 64 concert at Philharmonic Hall, is probably musically on a higher level than this, just because it's literally just Dylan at his absolute best performing, just killing it. But I really like how all over the map this is. And that third disc with that live Isle of Wight concert is something I listen to a lot. So it's jumping in at number 5. I think it's a really solid release. I think it's really enjoyable. Self-Portrait is underrated. I think it's getting its dues as time goes on. People are seeing, why Dylan put it out and why it makes sense in his catalog. But yeah, it's a fantastic release, man. I think if you're a hardcore Dylan fan, or if you're, I'd say if this is the spectrum and you're somewhere near the middle on that side of the hardcoreness, this is well worth getting. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. But anyways, those are my thoughts on this. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts on this. Let me know, comment, subscribe, like, share, and go listen to music. Go listen. Go find the version of New Morning that's on here. I don't know if it's floating out separately on YouTube. I'm sure it's somewhere on streaming. But listen to this New Morning. Like, put it on tomorrow. Don't even listen to it now. Wake up in the morning when you're grumpy and tired and put this on. And if you aren't skipping out the door ready to greet the new day, I don't know, man. You have no heart, possibly no soul. It's a fantastic song. A fantastic version of a fun little song. But anyways, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, like, share, comment, all that stuff, and go listen to music. Peace. Talk to you later.